Okay, so we have already. To my co-hosts, so Andrea and Isabel, I think, or Joanna. Maybe you, no, Joanna, yes, I said Joanna and Isabel. Maybe you will, can you also see when someone is asking to enter? Oh, I saw now. You received the notification, right? Okay, great. So we'll let everybody come in. So we have, so let's start. So welcome to everyone. Very, very good to start one more webinar series. You all, I think most of you were already there here for the series of October last year. What we, I will put it this way, it's easier. So this is the second round of webinars. The last time in October, there were 3 sessions, one on ecofeminism, the other on education, and the other on social solidarity and economy. So everything related to the nature-based solutions, their relations on nature-based solutions, since TRANS-lighthouses is about the social politics of nature-based solutions. And so what we wanted to advance today, it is the second part of webinars, was to also to focus more on sharing knowledge that is useful for policy and for practice. So we have, we will have three sessions this March. So the first one is today on focusing more on rural communities. Tomorrow we'll have a second session, which will focus more on governance, so enabling transformative governance for nature-based solutions. And third session on Wednesday about digital tools to support nature-based solutions. And so today we have speakers who generously accepted the invitation to share their experience with us today. And we have a panel of speakers representing many parts of the world and of Europe as well. So we have Swati from India, Maria from Denmark, Eduardo from Estarreja, so in Portugal, in the continent, continental Portugal. We have Rita in the Azores, so in the middle of the ocean. And we have Gerd from Germany. So they will share with us their experience, and then we'll have a time dedicated to asking questions or go more into discussion in some aspects. Always with this focus, sharing experience that is useful for policy and for practice. So our first session today will start with Swati. As I said, she's from India. We have here some elements about her career, her background. So Swati is at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. She's professor and chairperson at the Center for Livelihoods and Social Innovation. She coordinates also the Right Livelihood College Mumbai, which is part of the global network connecting academia and practice. Her work focuses on people-centered social innovation, participatory methodologies, and grassroots knowledge. Most importantly also for us today, Swati is an associated partner of TRANS-lighthouses. Helping TRANS-lighthouses, receiving also inspiration from other parts of the world, and also helping the European experience also to have dialogue beyond Europe. So Swati will have a presentation today on centering community-based knowledge in nature-based solutions, co-producing policy with traditional fishing communities in India. So I'll give you the floor, Swati, and I stop sharing so you can share your presentation.
Thank you. I'll share my presentation here. Okay. So good afternoon and good evening, depending on which part of the world we are in. But it's wonderful to also have this North-South dialogue. And I guess that's where knowledge converges and new knowledge emerges. So wonderful to have this opportunity and, of course, to meet all of you and to learn from all of you. So what I would focus today is, how do we look at knowledges of local communities in nature-based solution. And I would talk about a policy that we co-produced with local fishing communities in India. Some of the focus areas here would be lived experiences of local fishing communities, the nature cultural entanglements as everyday life experiences of the local fishing communities, and how do we use participatory methodologies as a way to understand this lived experiences, and how do we therefore co-produce a policy along with people. We did this study, Tata Institute of Social Sciences. We did this study with local fishing communities who were affected by a coastal road project. So the whole idea was that how do we look at participatory methodologies to broaden people's knowledge, to broaden the scope of assessment and also the outcome. So this was a collaborative work with people and the local municipality. And, at the end of it, we could co-produce a policy that would enable not only the participation, but look at a policy which is community-centered. So I would start with this. Actually, it's a small story here. We thought, when we were talking about participatory methodologies and we were to go to the fishing communities, trying to understand their lived realities, there was a problem. The community said that, no, you can't come to the community unless you come with us to the sea, and come to us to the sea when the sea is rough. And we were a little worried because we didn't have that experience. But because the community wanted us to go with them in the sea, we did that. And that's where we realized that not only we learned about the people and their relationship with the sea a little more, but we realized trust is a foundation. How do we build trust becomes very important for any participatory approach while we are trying to understand this nature culture entanglements. So some of the questions that emerges for us here is, do we make enough time for really building relationships with people? And how do we give people the time and respect for them to truly share their experiences? As people said, that you need to join us and experience the sea, because we visit the sea every day, every season, every weather. So here what we stress is the need for recognizing knowledge, which is grounded on the conditions of local communities and the rhythm of rural nature-based communities. What Robert Chambers talks about micro environments, he talks about how do we observe the unobserved.
Swati, I'm just telling you, you are still in the first slide, in the cover, or are you advancing?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in the third slide already. You didn't see the slide, is it?
No, that's why. That's why. Maybe you put your cursor in the second or the third slide on the left of your. Exactly. Now we can see it. When you put the cursor here on the left, we can see. That's great.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. In fact, I would want you to see some of these photographs. Maybe I'll keep it this way. Yeah. So this is what I just spoke about, this project that we have been part of, and how we use participatory methodologies to focus on people's knowledges. And then I spoke about people wanting us to go into the sea, and therefore trying to see how trust is foundational, and therefore how do we look at the micro environments and the rhythms of rural life for truly understanding people's experiences. Are you able to see the slides now? Wonderful, thank you. So coming to learning, building this rapport with people, trying to get people's trust, we moved on to understanding their ecological knowledges emerging from the everyday life of the traditional fishing communities. And we looked at various set of participatory tools. So we started with what we call primary tools, where we did a transact walk, we did a community mapping, we did a seasonal calendar, and then we co-produced the second set of tools along with people to see what need more in-depth insights and understanding. Again, the underlying assumption of all of this using these participatory tools was to elicit people's views, their aspirations, their struggles, and how do we involve people as partners in co-producing these policies, because the project was affecting people the most, and as outsiders, as researchers, it was difficult for us to understand. So we didn't get into the assessment directly. There were, of course, several community level meetings. We identified the fishing cooperatives, fish workers cooperatives. We sat with them. We went to their community. We went to the sea, and then we started implementing these tools. I'll just give you some very few insights from some of the tools that we used. I'll not get into the detail of the policy, but some of the participatory methodology that we used. And here we looked at, which I said before, the nature culture entanglements. And we look at three key actors actors for the fishing communities, the fish as the first actor, and how the livelihood choices and fish is embedded in the socio-cultural practices of the fishing communities. So we actually sat with people and did a calendar, and we realized that the fishing starts from August, and that's where also they get the maximum earning. And then there is a period where they don't go for fishing. Yeah, it's actually the breeding period of the fishes. That's where when they make the nets. So we realized that in the local ways of fishing, there is a relationship with the fish and the sea, and there is a way to conserve that. So the fishing community, which is called the Koli fishing community, they say fish is a gift that provides us sustenance and a way of life. And therefore, we also need to protect the fish. We can't go for fishing during the breeding season. And of course, there is also an appreciation for certain kind of fish, which sustains their livelihoods. The sea. The sea is the second actor, which is very important in the lives of the local communities, the local fishing communities. And then there are various festivals. When the fishing season starts in August, it starts with a festival. The ritual at the beginning of the season, they ask the waters to remain calm, and they pray to the sea for protection. They also offer coconuts to the sea, which is a symbol that the sea would offer them prosperity in return. We also did multiple other, but the other very important actor was boats. Boats in the life of the fisher folks, and we see this nature culture entanglement. So we see that there are different kinds of boats, and there are non-motorized boats and motorized boats, and the kind of fuel that they use for the different boats. And we found out that they largely use boats which needed less fuel, and they tried to avoid boats which needed more fuel. However, because of the development project, it affected the navigation route of the fisher folks. And they said that due to the construction work, we had to change our route many times, leading to increase in the number of fuel as the water course has changed. The net, which is the other actor, and during the off season, they spend their time making this nets. And there are various kinds of nets. If you see the blue net, that's for the lobster. That's for catching lobster. The white net, that's for catching another fish, the pomfret. From here, we went on using different tools, different participatory tools, to identify the everyday lived experiences and what is changing for them due to the Coastal Road project. A woman hand picker who fishes in the intertidal zones, she says that not only our catch has decreased, certain kind of fish has decreased, but we now spend more time for the same catch. So the catch and effort has changed. Simultaneously, a boat owner talks about how the breeding area of the lobster has been affecting their catch. So what we did was, we also realized that fishing communities are not homogeneous. There are diverse people in the value chain across the fishing value chain. So we tried to identify the different actors, which was the boat owner, the boat captain or the boat driver, the workers who work in the boat, the hand pickers, the fish sailors, and each people had a specific role along the fishing value chain. And most of the times they were all clubbed as fishing communities, and therefore the differential effect of the project was not recognized earlier on them. So I'll try to wind up here to say that, what did we learn using participatory methodologies? How did we look at this relationship between the fishing communities and the sea? How did we look at the nature culture entanglements and the different key actors who were important part of the fishing community's life? So one, we realized that the compensation policy that we tried to work along with people and the local municipality was a paradigm shift from existing policies. It was actor-centric. So we realized most of the mainstream policies were looking at households as a unit and household compensation, where the roles of the women were getting subsumed, where the roles of many other actors like the hand pickers, women hand pickers who fish on the intertidal zone were getting subsumed. So we looked at actor-centric compensation. We also looked at a policy where which was people and ecology centered. So which essentially integrated the everyday knowledges of the local fishing communities, and not only it integrated their knowledge, but it was also a space. We tried to create several committees and spaces where people could participate, leading to a dialogue and a co-production of a policy. So essentially, collective spaces of solidarity, participation, discussion, and debate, inclusive and community engaged. And this was very important, because we realized that, as I said before, many of the groups along the fishing value chain were getting invisibilized, both by the fishing community and by especially the fish workers cooperatives and by the local government. One of this was the women fish workers who used to do hand picking at the intertidal zone. They wouldn't go into the deep sea, but they would do this hand picking. While we were studying them, the government said, no, they are not fish workers. They don't have the license. So the women were not considered as fish workers. They didn't have the license. And therefore, we were asked not to study them. However, we had to do this advocacy with the government to say, and also with the local fish workers cooperatives who were again male dominated, we had to say, what is this role of the women hand pickers? And then trying to enumerate them, trying to understand how were they getting affected by this project. And of course, we worked out a compensation for them, which was more than the others, essentially because the loss was more for this women than the other fisher folks. So it was the implementation of the participatory value chain as a participatory tool, which helped us to understand the different roles of the actors. And finally, it was this convergence of academic research and local knowledge, which led us to create this compensation policy that led to the disbursement, not only about disbursement about 150 crore INR, but it was the paradigm shift in the policy led to a high court judgment which said that we need to follow the methodology of this policy for all such future policies. So to end with, what are the values that guided our research and our work with the local fishing communities? It was about listening to people's voices at the margins. Because we realized, it's a simple commitment that all are listened to. And that is where inclusion and sustainability can take place. And that is how we would want to define and redefine nature-based solutions. So it's a knowledge that post-development or decolonial theorists would say gives voice, not in an exotic sense, but as emergence of new beginnings or as the sociology of emergences. So this is one of the article that we wrote based on our experience with engagement with fishing communities. So this is to end. I think I have finished my time, but just to end this, this is one of the experience I tried to delineate here. But essentially, with my work with traditionally natural resource dependent communities like the fishing communities or the indigenous communities, the forest-based communities, what emerges very squarely is the rich knowledge that the people have. And at the same time, the inadequacy of our mainstream knowledge, which fails to capture them. So how do we look at local knowledges and how do we look at methodologies that helps to not only visibilize people's knowledge, but gives them respect and dignity in our modern scheme of development paradigm? And that's where we could look at knowledge justice, which I feel would be the core of not only development, but also solutions where we are talking about nature-based inclusion and sustainability. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Swati. Thank you so much for, and mostly because you are bringing things very, very, very concrete, very rich outcomes. In fact, like you mentioned about a policy instrument that is immediately derived from your work, and so that's impressive, in fact. So we'll share the reference of the work that you shared. Maybe you can put in the chat the reference so the colleagues can have immediate access to this paper. So as we mentioned at the beginning, we have here a lighthouse of experiences from different places, from different, not only from Europe. And we have Eduardo Mendes, who joined us also while we were starting. So I think we have all our fellow speakers together now. So I will also ask all the speakers to feed also from the other presentation, so they can immediately also wave this ecology that Swati already introduced. They're very practical examples in terms of research tools, in terms of engagement. And so now I think I will give the floor to Maria Andersen from Denmark. So Maria will share with us her experience also from the regenerative farming in Denmark. It's already a pilot in TRANS-lighthouses, this experience. Maria, so she's a project developer working on food and sustainability initiatives in Denmark. She's a member of the board of the Regenerative Farming Association, and she teaches regenerative agriculture. She teaches at the Regenerative Agriculture School on local food systems, supply chains. I think supply chains. Sorry, I was afraid I was missing something in the chat. And also, she works on the collaborations between farmer and citizens. So, Maria, would you like to take the floor and share with us your experience on regenerative farming? I think that Maria, she's without her camera. Maybe she had to left for a moment. Do you see Maria? No. Oh, I think that she was trying to enter with another device. We have two Marias now. Yes, Maria, we lost you for a moment because
I'm sorry. Apparently, I got kicked out of the meeting.
no, you are connected with two devices, it seems.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. There was no interference. I was just sharing that you are a member of a pilot of the TRANS-lighthouses project in Denmark. I also mentioned about your activity at the regenerative farming network, and also all the activities, the teaching activities and knowledge sharing that you already have in Denmark. So I gave you the floor, and you share with us your practices, experiences, and if you would like already to connect with Swati's presentation, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. And thank you all. Swati, thank you so much. You're a hard one to follow. I kind of represent the other end of the aspect, I guess, since I am not part of academic life on a daily basis. So my contribution to the TRANS-lighthouse project is as board member of the Regenerative Farming Association in Denmark. So our association is working closely together with Roskilde University, and I guess that we have kind of flipped it upside down so that it is the practitioners on the floor, so to speak, that kind of drives some of the work in this project. And I have not made any slides, so I will just share a bit of insight on part of our project, and then you are free to ask questions. I can see in the program that there is room for questions in the end. But about the Regenerative Farming Association, we were established in 2019 with a primary focus on building networks, facilitating knowledge exchange, and advancing regenerative agricultural methods. So the founding group was a primarily young, I guess you could say, a group of farmers seeking a place to network and share knowledge because they felt quite alone with their agricultural practices within the Danish landscape of farmers. Today, it comprises of approximately 300 members, and about 100 of them, so a third, is active producers of food. The final 2/3 of the association is supporters, so to speak. In 2022, we founded the Regenerative Agriculture School to strengthen professional learning environments and support the development of practitioners within the field. So it is a 1-year, very condensed session where you mainly work at a farm, but then you also have some theoretical knowledge across the season. The aim of the school is to enable coming farmers to actually go out and start their own farming business after this year of school. And it's not associated with any of the state schools, so it's completely built from the bottom by us, and is something that you have to kind of choose to do yourself. You won't get any diploma or official certificate when you're done, but it gives you tools and methods within regenerative practice that you don't get at the conventional farming schools. In Denmark, we don't have any common definition of regenerative farming, and as we can see across the rest of Europe, it differs a lot between the different actors. How to define regenerative farming kind of depends on who you ask. What we have defined it as in this project, and also within our association, we consider regenerative agriculture as an approach to farming that emphasizes restoring the health of ecosystems through specific agricultural practices. Central to regenerative agriculture is the recognition of the intricate relationships between farming activities and natural processes. Regenerative farming seeks to harmonize agricultural production with ecological sustainability. In relation to nature-based solutions and the whole perspective of TRANS-lighthouse, I guess, and this is always a bit difficult when you're part of the movement that's being looked into. But I guess that you could say that we as farmers have a different relationship with nature, and we have a more holistic view on how to manage both soil and crops and the economy and relation to the people who are eating the vegetables that we farm. What we can see across our member base is some specific characteristics. We see an equal gender distribution. We also see that a lot of our practitioners are relatively young and self-employed. They are often newcomers to agriculture, so they are formally unskilled in the agricultural sense, but they have a comparatively high level of academic education. Most of them have started or completed some kind of education within academia and tend to move towards regenerative farming as a way to seek, I guess, a more meaningful work life. Production tends to be small scale and chemical free. Roughly half of the farmers are also organically certified. Cropping systems typically involve vegetable and horticultural production in permanent bed systems, combined with meat production based on rotational grazing. The products are sold primarily to professional kitchens, so restaurants and canteens. Also through on-farm shops or via CSA models, that is community-supported agriculture. Also a very interesting model, but not something that we have dived into within this specific project. Mostly work alone with the support from volunteers. And finally, a lot of our members, they maintain a supplementary income outside agriculture. What we can see from this project, one of my colleagues within this project from Roskilde University, she looked at the motivations of the farmers, and what we found was that the motivations of regenerative farmers are often deeply interconnected. So while restoring ecosystems and improving soil health, that remains the important goals, many farmers are equally driven by a desire to transform human-nature relationships and create spaces where people can reconnect with nature. For them, regenerative farming is not just a technical practice, but a holistic approach to creating healthier landscapes, communities, and ways of living. So that means that contrary to a conventional farm in Denmark, what we find in regenerative farms is often an add-on, like farm dinners, where you invite the community to come and eat at your farm. Maybe you have harvest days, or you have days where the community come and help you clean up the beds to prepare for a new crop that has to be planted or something like that. So what we see across our community of farmers is that they try to create a more tight relationship or close relationship with the community that they're close to. Within the TRANS-lighthouses project, we have, in this final part of the project, looked into where might the structural potential for collaboration between municipal actors and regenerative farms lie. And several policy developments are particularly relevant to answer this question. Local food systems transitions is one part. And in Denmark, what we can see is that as Scope 3 emissions become integrated into organizational climate strategies, municipalities and institutions may increasingly seek to locally sourced regeneratively produced vegetables. So we could see that there might be a potential from the whole Scope 3 emission reporting to look into a closer connection between the farmers and the municipalities. And a second thing that is also very local to Denmark is that we have the Green Tripartite Agreement, which is a state agreement on land redistribution. And these initiatives may create new opportunities to convert parts of the agricultural landscape into regenerative practice, especially in areas targeted for nature restoration, carbon reduction, or diversified land use. This was kind of our initial idea, and what we did was to investigate whether the municipal actors had the same idea, and to see what kind of potential or obstacles that might lie in a closer connection between the municipal actors and the farmers. So what we can see is that traditionally the relationship between municipalities and farmers has been regulatory in nature, so focused primarily on compliance and inspections. And as long as farmers adhere to the law, there has been very little incentive for further engagement. Agriculture is viewed as a liberal profession, and municipalities have not sought to intervene unnecessarily. However, with new policy frameworks and a growing emphasis on climate, biodiversity, and local food systems, municipalities may increasingly play a role as facilitators rather than just regulators. So in Denmark, municipalities work with these different roles. I guess maybe they do also across other European nations. But we tend to see that when we come and we talk to them about farming and agriculture, they have a tendency to just look at it as a regulatory task. But we can see that there is different places within the municipalities where this facilitating role could be used as a way of supporting more regenerative farms locally. And in summary, we see 3 areas of potential. There is a potential within access to land. A lot of regenerative farmers don't have access to land. in Denmark, most agricultural land is centered around very few, very large actors, and it's very hard to come across 1-2 hectares, as many of the regenerative farmers are starting with. And what we can see is that there is good examples of municipalities that lend out municipal land to young regenerative farmers as a way to start small-scale market gardens that could provide food for the communities surrounding it. Another potential is access to markets, so particularly through institutional procurement and also supporting local value chains. So local communities buying directly from the farmer, or the municipalities enabling local markets at the different cities within the municipality. And a final key area of potential is a collaboration on nature management, and that is in relation to this this shift we see where we have some national land redistribution requirements in Denmark currently, and here we can see that some of those requirements are on a municipal level, and the regenerative farmers are actually able to support the municipalities in land management, for instance, with holistic grazing, with cattle or other animals. And that was actually, I'm just going to go back to the screen. I think that was it for me. And then I am, of course, I can answer questions if you have anything later on.
Maria, thank you so much. In fact, even without visuals, you made it very, very, very concrete and intelligible. In fact, you are kind of a peculiar pilot, peculiar living knowledge lab, being at the center of what is being studied. And so you made it very clear that the regenerative farming network is an impressive experience, in fact, a wide experience, and we need to put more of this experience on the spotlight as a TRANS-lighthouse, in fact, as a lighthouse, to bring this experience not only in other European nations, as you mentioned, but also outside, something that you put the finger on, and that Swati also mentioned. It was very clear about the human nature relation that is being advocated and put into practice, not only in terms of research and research positioning, but also in terms of you are an activist in the field, putting it very clear. And also the peculiar role that you mentioned in your relation with policy, like how you are putting the link with the policy of the local governments, with the municipalities. That was extremely rich in this aspect, and the very concrete areas that you mentioned where progress, where advancement can be reached. So thank you so much, Maria, for this great experience, and we'll put it all together when we'll have this exchange. And as I mentioned, I'm asking your fellow speakers to also to try to think of this connection, so we have a very rich exchange after this lighthouse of presentations. So we had Swati from India, Maria from Denmark. Now we had the sea, the land. Now we go to the land, but a mix with the sea in Estarreja with Eduardo. So Eduardo is also part of the TRANS-lighthouses. He is involved with the living knowledge lab in Estarreja, Municipality of Estarreja. Eduardo has a background in biology, applied biology, ecology, biodiversity, and ecosystem management, and is involved in very impressive projects in Estarreja with the bioreia. I don't know how many of you had the chance to go to Estarreja and visit this project. That's amazing. In fact, I do it myself with my family. So it's very, very, very important if you have the chance to go there and meet Eduardo there. But now today we have the chance of Eduardo online, and he will make a presentation about community echoes in nature conservation. So I give you the floor, Eduardo. If you have something to share, any visual, you can share it automatically. Otherwise, do as Maria did, sharing insights.
Thank you, Nathalie. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to share the work that we are developing here in Estarreja. I have prepared a few slides, so I will share the presentation with you. Please let me know if you can see it in full screen. Yes?
We can see the slides on the left on the miniatures. Now we have it on full screen.
Yep.
And so you are presenting the cover of today, and then you will introduce.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine.
Yeah, here it is. Okay, so this is actually following kind of a path. So after the presentation of Swati, more academic presence or a strong academic presence, we moved to Maria with a more of a practitioner's perspective on a farmers association. And Maria actually stated the importance of involving the municipalities as facilitators of the project. And this is actually on the path to our presentation. Basically, I will share the work that the municipality of Estarreja is coordinating and developing here in the council. So the title for this presentation is Community Echoes in Nature Conservation, because basically we try to establish a bridge between these two often apart worlds, community and nature conservation. So I will start with the framing of the pilot case, because I will basically tell you the story of our pilot, because this is the work that we are developing now in Estarreja, and that allows us to reach this objective of nature conservation. And I will tell you some parts of the pilot case, some specific methodologies that we are using. So all of this started in Estarreja, because Estarreja has a very rich territory, very diverse territory. It's a small municipality in Portugal. It has a little bit over 26,000 inhabitants. It's mostly organized on a rural matrix, and we have lots of different types of environment. As Nathalie said, we have a major wetland here. You can see here in the council we have some towns, some parishes, civil parishes of the council that are right in the margin of this wetland, which is called the Aveiro Lagoon. But we also have some farming fields, because this is a very, very productive area. We have an urban area here in the center of Estarreja, also with a big, significant industrial complex. And we have also some forestry areas. So you can see mostly plantations of eucalyptus. So it's productive forests, not really conservation forests. So it's a really diverse territory, and we have different land uses. And most of the territory, or a great part of it, it's organized in a small holding scheme. So lots of different landowners with small parcels of land. So the drivers for the pilot case, why we started working in this pilot case, because most of the land here is privately owned, so it's managed by the owners. And we have several different visions for the territory, often conflicting, which is a challenge, a real big challenge for the management of the territory. And we have seen in the past decades some land use changes and the adoption of some unsustainable practices that have driven significant biodiversity loss. So we wanted to stop this. And if we wanted to stop this, we had to include the community because they are a major stakeholder here in the territory. So after some discussion and some maturation of the pilot case, because the pilot case changed a little bit throughout the TRANS-lighthouses project, we established the main objective of the pilot case, the co-creation of a strategy to protect and promote Estarreja natural patrimony. I know this is kind of complex, this is really broad, and this is actually one of the challenges that we have been facing since the beginning of the project, but at the same time, it allows us to have a blank slate approach to the project and the main objectives. So we wanted to implement a space for discussion and knowledge sharing. We wanted to include the major stakeholders in the process, and we wanted to make nature and biodiversity the topic of discussions. We then created ECO, Estarreja Colaborativa e Orientadora. So this is kind of a wordplay. Echo from ecology, but also echo from the sound, echoing. So this pilot case, this is the name that we given to the pilot case, and that moved further on. So this basically comprehends a participatory process. This is no news for most of the people here. It has the 4 typical stages of a participatory process, and we involved a wide array of stakeholders. Some of them are represented here in the slide. We have citizens, we've had landowners, farmers, foresters, we had the school community as well, local NGOs, social, environmental, sporting, cultural. We have some representatives of local businesses and industry and researchers as well. So we had a wide array of participants, of stakeholders involved in the process. And at the same time, because this was not enough, we decided to implement a specific branch of the pilot case directly with schools, because we knew that we were not going to convince youth to take part in the participatory sessions in Saturday mornings. Since there are no universities here in Estarreja, we only had youth from secondary school, up to secondary school. So we decided that we wanted to involve schools in a specific part of the pilot case. So the pilot case started with the co-diagnostic sessions. You can see here some of the pictures. We decided to create sessions in all of the civil parishes of the council, because each parish has its own specificities. The territory changes quite a lot from one to the other. So we wanted to implement basically a living knowledge in each of the parishes, so we could discuss to the detail the territory of each one. We developed sessions in 6 of the civil parishes. Plus, we decided to implement one more institutional council-wide session and one internal just for collaborators of the Municipality of Estarreja from different divisions, different areas of work, and from different careers as well, from the heads of division, the executive members, to technicians and operatives as well. So we had quite of a diverse type of participants. So in this diagnostic, we reached 34 strategic measures with lots of different specific actions inside them, 283 is a lot, that we reported on a report of the co-diagnostic stage. Afterwards, we did kind of a screening and of the proposals, and we promoted the co-design session, a full day co-design session, basically to select and prioritize the proposals that were constructed on the co-diagnostic stage, and to basically elaborate them and actually turn them into specific implementable projects. So this was the main objective of this co-design session. We used focus groups and a little bit of design thinking as well, kind of a mix of both methodologies to do this work. So this basically all of the steps that that we did were shared on the website of the project, were shared also through a newsletter with all of the reports that you can see here. They are all available online. So we wanted this to be a quite transparent process, especially the work that we have done after the co-design session, because after that we had 23 project proposals, which is kind of a lot, to vote from, to choose from. And they were all very interesting ideas. Some of them actually kind of went off a little bit of the TRANS-lighthouses scope. So they went off the nature-based solutions umbrella. And they ran off a little bit of the pilot cases goals, and some were difficult to implement or depended on national entities that will delay quite a lot the process. So we did technical validation of the proposals, all shared on reports and all explained to the participants. And we end up with 10 proposals that went to public voting. So these were, okay, this is all in Portuguese. I'm sorry, I didn't have the chance to translate everything. But these were the 10 proposals, all very interesting. So we would be pretty happy with whichever was the end result. The voting of these proposals, it was a presidential voting, but using an online platform. It went in the beginning of the year in January, and it occurred throughout 2 weeks. We had 9 voting locations. All of the parishes again were involved, and we have the public library as well, the environmental center. So we had 9 voting locations fixed, and we had 1 mobile. We collected also some statistical information of the voters for analysis, and we opened the vote to youth, to 13 years old and older. You have here some pictures of the data that we collected from the voters. So the national fiscal number, just to have the confirmation that the person actually exists and is registered in Portugal, so it can vote. The parish, the location of parish, the age, gender, and the literary habilitations. So the 10 proposals appeared, as you can see here, in a random order. It was not always on the right numbers, and each voter could select 2 proposals. Should select 2 proposals, 2 different ones. The results are here. So the proposal that won was the municipal network of micro reserves, and but there are 3 or 4 more proposals close to it. This one was actually one of the proposals that we noticed that has a little bit of more interest during the discussions. And we had already some of the specific locations for to implement the micro reserves identified by some of the participants. We also have our own suggestions. So we are working now to prioritize the locations to see which one is the most urgent to act and the most important to start on. We are working as the next steps. We are working now on drafting a regulation that we want to open to discussion on March 26 with another participatory session in which we want to discuss not only some specific points of the regulation, but also the co-governance model that we want to implement in the municipal network of micro reserves. This regulation will be official, so it will be recognized at a municipal level. So this will have a direct reflection on the local policies. And then we will start the implementation actions as well. So this is the main stage of our pilot case. So this is the poster of the session that we are hosting in the end of this month. And then we have the school. So for the schools, in a very summarized way, we co-created a process with a project with the teachers. So basically everything was discussed from the beginning with the teachers. And the idea was for 4 classes, 2 of the 8th, now 9th grade, and 2 classes of the 11th, now 12th grade, to create their own nature-based solutions to implement in the council. So we started by gathering their ideas, their proposals. We discussed the main pros and cons of each of the proposals, and they voted on the proposal that they thought it was the best, the most interesting to implement here in the council. The 12th grade students actually presented this work to the partners of TRANS-lighthouses during the consortium meeting held in Portugal. And the winning proposals are these. So we are working on a green space in Ribeira da Aldeia in Pardilhó. So basically this one will be focused more on the artistical part of the culture and nature of Pardilhó. Then we have an edible forest that we are going to implement in Avanca. So a new green space close to an IPSS, so close to a social NGO, which will have us a really interesting collaboration with us. Then a leisure area in Ilha dos Amores, which belongs to Salreu, and really focused, conservation-focused project to protect the Hart's-tongue fern, which is an endangered species of fern that grows on the ruins of an old watermill. So these are the 4 projects that we are moving on to implement with the students. And we already did some design thinking activities in local. So the students could meet the places, all of the students could meet the places and think about what they want to see there, what they want to create there, and to discuss some of the ideas. For instance, in the picture that you can see here on the right, we had an informal group of citizens as well participating in that activity so that they could share a little bit the culture and the history regarding the water mills in the Antoine River. That is actually quite proximately connected with the project from the students. So what are we going to do in the end of this school year? We are going to do some activities focused on the control of invasive plant species, and we are planting some native trees and shrubs and some fruit trees as well on the edible forest in Avanca. We are going to build a small pond, and we are going to work on a mural, a painting with an artist in Pardilhó to represent the natural and cultural patrimony of the location, but this all in collaboration with the students. And the students will write some informative contents to put in panels on their project sites. And the students, hopefully, or will organize some activities for school community or open to the public to share the work that they have done here in Estarreja. So this is basically, I know I just told you all of the story of the pilot case, but it actually reflects the impact that it will have here in the territory, because we will work directly into the green spaces in Estarreja with the students, and directly into nature conservation in the territory by establishing the municipal network of micro-reserves. So all of this was actually built together with community and will have echo in the territory. So we will see this work actually in the practice here in Estarreja. And that's it from me. I hope this was clear and it was not too boring.
It is always clear and very inspiring, Eduardo. I think that Estarreja has been doing a very hard work. So you always present, in fact, very intense activities. We are talking about a process that involved many aspects, and I think it resonates also with Swati's and Maria's presentations in terms of diversity of tools that are employed. I did not mention earlier, but Maria talked about a school that it created, that people, they go and have a training that is not even a national certification, but because it's important to them for their project, life project. In your case, you are sharing a lot of policy embedded in practice. So that's a very different aspect that make it recent. You also mentioned a lot about the diversity of local diversity, like Swati also mentioned about the diversity of fishers, like to be recognized, and even the diversity, as Maria mentioned, the diversity of human nature relation. Like you put it very clear, the different tools that need to be developed to voice the knowledge of each person, and the visuals are always very impressive, as you put the finger on how important it is to work on the communication with people. So, and you mentioned all the ingredients that Swati and Maria mentioned about the transparency. You mentioned a lot about transparency and about the trust that you are building also along the process, be it with citizens or be it in the schools with the youth. So thank you so much for bringing this richness, and we need a blog post about this process, in fact, Eduardo. So we need to discuss about this later.
We'll work on it.
I know, but we are here also to help. So when we go back to our lighthouse, so we're at India, Denmark, Portugal, we will continue with Portugal, but in the middle of the ocean, with Rita from the University of the Azores. So one more pilot of TRANS-lighthouses. Rita is a researcher at the University of the Azores, involved in the pilot in Azores. She's a research background is in sociology. She works on climate change, sustainable development policies, but also very linked with social inequalities, youth transition to the labor market, socio-environmental transformation. So also many aspects that resonate with the other colleagues, your fellow speakers. So Rita, you will talk about the Janela do Inferno trail, so the experience, the pilot in Azores. So I give you the floor. You share the screen whenever you want.
Okay, thank you so much. It's a big pleasure to be here with you. Let me know if you're seeing the slides okay. And also it's on behalf of the Azores team. I would like to congratulate SES for continuing to organize this important and so inspiring webinar series. And for today, I would like to share, as Nathalie said, some of the main results of our pilot study here in Lagoa, in the Azores, focusing on the trail Janela do Inferno trail. But starting with a little bit of a conceptual framework, we do know that in the islands, they face specific ecological and social challenges. And here, the Azores are no exceptions. We face environmental and social economic challenges, also being among the less economically developed regions in Portugal, face high levels of poverty. And in this context, NBS offer, as the literature puts it, integrative responses, linking ecology, economy, and society in a very holistic way. And at least this is the framework we are exploring in our pilot, as we can see here in figure 1. So as a nature-based solution. Trails can actually contribute to environmental education, cultural and recreational activities, community well-being, and local development. But also in our case, in our pilot, we are observing this, and this is very important, also the importance of the trail as a way to revive local memories and identity, especially among younger generations. But just a brief context of Lagoa. So this study focus on Janela do Inferno Trail in São Miguel Island, which is in a rural context. And it's part of a small municipality, the municipality of Lagoa, which it has a micro enterprise-based economy, still with the high weight of agriculture. It's a very young municipality, much higher than the national average in Portugal. And in terms of tourism, we are observing a growing tourism activity. And of course, the main attraction is, as we can see here in the third photo, of course, the Lagoa do Fogo crater. And here, Lagoa do Fogo is very important also for our trail, because Janela do Inferno spring is fed by groundwater originating from here, from Lagoa do Fogo. So it's very important for our trail. And so this pilot examines this rural trail in Lagoa as an NBS. And for that, we are using two main methods. One is a survey with a representative sample of Lagoa's community. We collected 376 respondents, and also interviews within the community. And this is to understand how this community relates to the NBS, relates to the trail. But first, a little bit of a historical context. Before it was a trail, we know that since the late 19th century, Janela do Inferno spring has been part of the island's water supply system, and has also served as an occasional site for community recreation, as you can see here on the third picture, where we see a community doing a picnic on Janela do Inferno. But the interviews, especially from the assessment case, suggest that in the past, this area was mainly used by what we call water managers, workers, locally known as agueiros, and also farmers. And the area was actually really little known by the local community. This quote from the farmer Tiago, that since he was a child used to work in the trail, illustrates the importance of the traditional knowledge that these professionals, the agueiros, have and had and still have nowadays, and because that knowledge continues to be used today. And he says that they were really important to pick up removing the foxes. The foxes, as he explains here in this quote, are the tree roots that grow into the water pipes and form a very strong knot inside, blocking the water. And the mission of the agueiros was to take them out. And nowadays, these foxes, as we also can see here in the photo, gain another meaning. They are used nowadays by professors to show a little bit what was the history of this natural space, natural area. So, of course, this is a knowledge that is being nowadays transformed in the local community for also pedagogical purposes. So we assist some recent transformation in the trail since it was formally established as a trail in 2015. This represents a shift from a productive landscape to a more natural-based infrastructure, a space for leisure, for tourism, for nature appreciation. So our interest in goal was to understand then how how to characterize the community's current relationship with the trail. And the survey shows that most of Lagoa's residents are aware of the trail. However, the local engagement with the trail is moderate, with many residents, as you can see here, remaining either non-user, they don't visit, never visited, or are unaware of the trail. However, the fact that this natural space has shifted from being a largely unknown to becoming increasingly used site for hiking by the local community, at least for 39% of the population, is a good, positive indicator. It's therefore important to understand what are the motivations that led the community to use the trail, to use the NBS. The results highlight at least three main uses of this trail. One, for social motivations. Second, nature experience, being in contact with nature. And third, to be in contact for well-being purposes, for health motivations. And these findings really corroborate what also emerged from the interviews, which point to the trail as a space for spending time with families, with friends. As also the farmer Tiago explained, he uses the trail both to spend time with his grandchildren and to enjoy the benefits of contact with nature. He says, I asked him if his grandchildren enjoyed walking, doing the trail, and he says they do very much. They would come down from up there, Janela do Inferno, arrive home, hug me, kiss me, and say, Grandpa, I'm happy. In the past, no one went there except the water workers. Now everyone goes there. So we could say that even though the concept of NBS remains obviously largely unfamiliar, the community does identify some of its potential and the benefits associated with it. We also want to highlight the fact that we are talking about a community that largely have a very big connection with nature. This was something that we are obviously interested, the human-nature connection, and we calculated a nature connection index. And in fact, we can confirm this hypothesis that we are talking about residents that have high levels of connections due to the rural character of this community, of course. But then we also want to understand what were the perceptions of the local community, whether they done or not the trail, of the trail's impact. And here we have some interesting indicators. Overall, respondents tend to perceive positive impacts associated with the trail, particularly regarding heritage valorization. So for 62.8% of the residents, this cultural dimension of the trail is highly important. But also the economic dimension, as the trail bringing economic benefits for the community, for 48.1% of the residents. Now, perceptions of visitor pressure are here more mixed. For 28% disagree that the number, the quantity of visitors that the trail is bringing is not excessive. I must highlight that this trail is the third most popular one in the island, and it's a trail that is used all around all year around. In different times of the year, but also for around 20% of the respondents, they say that the quantity of tourism is excessive. In contrast, regarding the involvement of the community in decision making, we see here that the perception is that it's relatively low, with a larger proportion of respondents indicating that the community has not been sufficiently involved in the decision makings about the trail. Similarly, and individually, willingness to participate in trail-related initiatives is moderate, with 26% expressing willingness to be involved and 28% indicating no willingness at all. So one of our objectives was to identify if there was different profiles on how the community relates to the NBS. And here we used a statistical method and multiple correspondence analysis using variables such as age, education, gender, nature connection level, trail use frequency, the perception of visitor pressure, willingness to be involved in governance. And indeed, we found that the residents engage with the trail in different ways. But a much more easier way to understand this is the fact that the MCA clearly shows that the trail occupies different positions on within the social structure of the rural community, with one segment of the population remaining more distant and relatively unfamiliar with the trail, and two other groups, one generally younger and with higher levels of education, but occasionally users, and another one more engaged, regular users, show greater proximity, use, and potential involvement in its management. Well, these results suggests that the trail is not yet fully integrated into the everyday life of the community. However, we do identify a core group of residents that could play an important role in its future valorization and management and co-governance. Before finishing, concluding, I would like to briefly reflect on some of the positive impacts that we already can evaluate from the pilot and the project that have already had in the community, particularly in helping to mobilize those groups that were previously more distant from the trail and encouraging their involvement with the NBS. And here I would like to highlight several activities made by the pilots that have contributed to this, such as the outdoor cinema on the trail, which is a big hit. Also the mapping using arts and nature by mapping biodiversity through clay or by drawing, but also moments where the community is invited to share their views in assemblies or participatory workshops. And I would like to highlight two quotes that illustrate this. One is from one of the presidents of a parish council in Lagoa, where he reflects the TRANS-lighthouses project has also helped open minds to the reality of the Janela do Inferno trail. Even the residents of the parish know the trail exists, but they tend to see it as something for tourists rather than something for themselves. They know about it, but they do not fully realize the benefits it can bring. That is a cultural issue. It's something deeply rooted in the local population. And also I would like to bring this quote from Inês. She lives in a locality, very small locality, really next to the trail, but she never visited the trail, but she was very curious about the trail. And I asked her in the interview, why haven't you gone to visit the trail since you live here so close by all her life? And she said, oh, my husband doesn't want to go with me. He says it's too long, blah, blah. But we organized a community walk with the Regenerativt locality because they are so close by of the trail, because already the assessment case already identified this issue, that many people wanting to go but didn't have the conditions, the opportunity. And now Inês, her husband, and their daughter visited the trail, and we can see here a photo of this community walk. To conclude, some final ideas. We do understand that NBS can strengthen well-being and place identity, reinforcing the relationship between the communities and their surrounding landscapes. But the data collected showed that this community perception of the trail include both benefits and tensions, reflecting also opportunities, but also concerns related to tourism and local involvement. But one key finding of the data is that residents relate to the trail in different ways, as other my colleagues has been pointing that out. And in our analysis, identified distinct community profiles, highlighting that communities are not all the same. They are not homogeneous. And understanding these different profiles is actually essential, in our opinion, for designing more effective governance strategies for NBS. This is particularly relevant for visitor management, community participation strategies in the future, and also the social acceptance of nature-based solution. So thank you so much for your attention, and I look forward for the discussion.
Thank you so much, Anna Rita. As you all noticed, we are late, okay? So, but we still have time to have Gerd's presentation, and if you are okay, we can make it longer, 15 minutes longer, so we can have more discussion. And it's important that Gerd has the time to present. But Anna Rita, as you mentioned, in fact, there is a very strong connection with the other presentations about showing that when we are talking about rural communities, we are talking about different profiles. In fact, even within the communities, and so we started with research with Swati. We went to the field actors with Maria. Then we went to the municipality with Eduardo, and with you, we come back to research, but also stressing how the intervention, the way that researchers interact with the community is important, in fact, and how this relation, the tools that are developed, and you mentioned a lot about activities that walking, going and meet people, having this specific relation, how it is so rich. And you mentioned two fantastic tools, in fact, this nature connection index that enriches also how we define nature-based solutions. We have even not using this word, as you said, and also this multiple correspondence analysis that seems extremely useful also. Both the nature connection index and the multiple correspondence analysis seem very important for decision makers, and the impact of your work also has already been noticed by the decision makers, by local government, as you mentioned. One of the local representatives mentioned. Who needs to leave right now? Oh, Maria. So you need to go. So
No, it was just that unfortunately, I can't stay over the scheduled time, but yeah, I will stay. Yeah.
Okay, so you will have the opportunity to listen to Gerd's presentation, but Maria will find a way to put all your presentations and links together with a different tool. We will imagine with you, but so you can have it as a mosaic, as an ecology of knowledges and experiences. So now we'll have Gerd, and Gerd, I need to share your presentation. So go back to this here. So let me manage this. So as I mentioned, how Lighthouse now is being completed with Gerd. So Gerd is also a key partner in TRANS-lighthouses. He's the leader of a work package dedicated to assessment cases. Is a senior researcher at the Technical University of Munich. He works since along with nature-based solutions and it's a framework of other projects also. He was involved also in the Physicus EU project. And he's also directly involved in an assessment case in Upper-Allgäu. I think you'll make it better than I in pronunciation, in terms of pronunciation. So Gerd is going to share insight about this assessment case with us today. So Gerd, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So I'm also adding the one more dimension to the set of presentations we had this afternoon. So also I will take you to the forest and what could be nature-based solutions in the forest, and I will also break it down more or less to this tiny little area in the very south of Germany. Where there's quite a lot of interesting work going on related to forest owners, and nature-based solutions. Next slide, please. So first of all, I have to, as said, so it will be related to forests and forest topics and Germany in specific. So I'll dive into forest Germany for the beginning. So we see on a little map on the side. So this is the entire land of Germany. And you see that about 1/3, so it's really the dark green patches, which are covered by forests. And actually half of the land of the forest that you see there in dark green. So they're owned by private forest owners, and actually most of them are small owners. Then we have around 15% of public bodies and municipalities that own forest, and 30% is actually owned by the federal state. Also talking about a little bit about forest history here. So as what you see over there, it's not really what naturally would be there. So by nature, it would be around 95% of forest cover. So everything would be more or less dark green without human interventions. And if you would do nature do its job, it would be dominated by a species called beech. So it's a Central European species, broadleaf. But if I would go back in history about 200 years ago, so actually the map would be more or less yellow or white. So actually around 200 years ago, so in Germany, almost all forests were gone. So the industry used it for energy purposes. For construction, it was actually the only source of raw materials and also energy that there was in Germany. And so we ended up more or less having bare land 200 years ago. And so this is also where regular forestry started, and you had to establish forests quickly, and the ones that are most suited for this bare land were pine and always spruce. But actually they're somewhat native, but they are mountain species, and so they're mostly affected by climate change. Then perhaps also if you look into your wallets and if you have some cash in there, you will see something else that is related to Germany. So with a small cent coins, so they have these oak leaves. And in Germany, usually are considered oak plays an important role. By share, it is not the case, but it was actually plays a very high cultural role in Germany. So oak was favored over millennia because it would provide timber, but also it would feed the animals until the 19th century. Imagine you need the good land for agriculture, and then where did you put the animals? You put them in the forest, and oak is a very good species with the oaks and the fruits. So this was very important, and so for this reason, Germans have a very strong relation to oaks, and this is why we also have it on our coins. So next time you open your wallet, and perhaps you find the oaks. Then also you have to know that actually most of the forests are free to the public. So even if it's a privately owned land, so people can go there. So there's free access, and forest owners don't get compensation, and revenues therefore is only from timber. Next slide, please. So as said, there's around a bit of the policy and framework settings. So around 2/3 is privately owned or by municipalities. The state there, so it's given then by the federal state. There's support and advice, so it's not part of the common agriculture policy for the good, but also for the bad for some cases. And it's organized different in every federal state. So in Bavaria, so it's there with agencies called Agencies for Food, Agriculture, and Forestry. And so they are responsible for 2 to 3 districts. And in the forest district, so you have a forester, and they are a kind of police officer. So they have the sovereign role, so they can actually punish people if they don't do things right. But also they give so-called community-oriented advice and consultancy for forest owners for free or for little money. So this is like chainsaw courses, so they go out in the forest giving you advice what you could do. But it means that you get some advice, but the day-to-day management is actually then for the forest owners themselves. And they have basically 2 options. So either they do it themselves, they go to a company and ask for helping them. So this is exist, or usually most of the forest owners actually join voluntary cooperative of forest owners, and also in Germany by law. So Germany favors to create corporates because stronger together, you're stronger together. And also there's a framework for that for cooperatives. So it means you get tax reliefs. There are funding schemes for investments, especially for forest cooperatives or for agricultural cooperatives, like support for investments, for machines, for trade fair stands, for contracting, but also for forest certification. And so if you're a forest owner, if you have something like 6 hectares, you join a forest owner cooperative, but their focus really on forest management, on timber sales, and they fund themselves through membership fees and taking a fee for timber sold and marketed through a cooperative. Next slide, please. So just to create the link about forest and nature-based solutions. So what could be nature-based solutions in forests? So actually already creating forests can be a nature-based solution. Enhancing a forest quality can be a nature-based solution, or forest management with focus on creating multiple benefit society could be also a nature-based solution. And forestry in Germany is very proud of this because actually it's kind of multiple benefits management. It has been actually first developed in Germany in a written form, and related laws exist already for 300 years. And also looking a bit back of my other project that I had before, natural hazards, and specific forest management practices can also reduce natural hazards such as flooding, landslides, rockfall, especially in mountain areas. And to get it more clear and to get it more explaining, so I will dive into the Upper Allgäu, which is a rural district in the Alps. Next slide, please. So this is a map where you can see where it's located in the TRANS-lighthouses family as an assessment case. Next slide, please. And I'll start also with this kind of multifunctional benefits of forest. And one of the starting points, actually, when it became really relevant in the area that actually forests are very vital for the region. And I go to my town, Immenstadt. So there was in July 27th, 1873, there was a very, very bad thunderstorm. And this small town there had actually a problem that with this very severe thunderstorm, all the slopes were almost bare at that time. All the water and all the rubble and everything flushed into the city right away. And it killed 11 people and damaging 80 to 100 houses. And this is what it actually looked like afterwards. And so after the damages have been cleared, so the community started to think, okay, what can we do? So one of the things were actually it was quite clear that the cause was the bare mountain slopes, and also that there should be perhaps some measures done to the water courses. And actually, what the community did in terms of forestry, so they bought up land and they forested it, and it was quite important that the forest would be there quickly. So they decided for fast-growing spruce. Um, this is also the species that is quite capable of this kind of bare land conditions. And in consequence, after several years, actually the forested area of the watershed has doubled. And so hopefully the flooding risk has now been reduced. Also, on the other hand, so not only the city started to afforest, But also at that time, there was severe changes in agriculture in this area. So there was the Industrial Revolution. So you get also food from elsewhere. You had the railway constructed. The area actually had to reinvent themselves, and so they started to shift their agriculture practices. And it also meant that actually less favorable land could be given up. And many of the landowners at that time decided also to plant these lands forests, and actually also as it's quick growing again, they planted it with Norway spruce. Next slide, please. So this is pretty much how a mountain slope in this area looks nowadays. So at the first sight, it looks nice and green. But if you're an expert, you already see the problems that you have in the forest. As said, so 1870s until 1960s with deforestations taking place. So you have quite even-aged forests. And if you go to the next slide, you can see the problems. So you have aging, weak planted spruce stands, you have gale damages, you have browsing of game. Actually, it's like in a supermarket or at a buffet. So imagine you have a lot of, similar things, and then you have these kind of nice mixed things, these nice greenish, tasty things. So deer is pretty much like we humans are. So they pick out the nice, tasty things from the buffet first. Also, with the aging stands, you get problems with bark beetle. Also, it's now a very popular tourist destination, so you have a lot of intense recreational use. And of course, there's also climate change, and you see that you have the problem that you lose biodiversity, you have fewer economies, the forest is less vital, and the result is that you have also an increased risk of rockfall, flooding, and erosion. So basically, you have to do something. Next slide, please. Yes, so there are a couple of things, and the things are actually quite well known what you can do or what you have to do. So you have to develop conservation concepts, you have maintenance activities to be done, you have to replant the forest. As said, there are many things, and actually it's all known. So the question is, why is nothing happening? Next slide, please. So if you look at a map of this mountain slope that I showed you, and you see the lines, the yellow lines and the aerial photo in the Google Earth. So you see the ownership structure. So you see that it's actually really of lots of small scale forest owners. Also, you have to think about maybe farmers. They were active until the 1970s, and the last thing was afforesting the land in the 1960s. Yeah. There's often no interest anymore because they have ceased farming operations. They have rented out the meadows, the agricultural lands to other farmers. Sometimes they have moved away to Munich or other big cities for work because you have better working opportunities there. So they don't know that they have actually forest, or they have a forest and they don't care about it. They are not member of forest cooperative anymore. Also, maybe they have other interests. But the problem is, so it's a ticking time bomb in some cases. So you need for the protective forest, you have good stable forest, not what you have seen on the pictures. And it requires also good, regular, and skilled management. And even if you're a farmer, sometimes you don't have the means to do the management yourself. Also, looking at this kind of mountain slope, so it means also you need to get access in a mountain area to do something. And yes, often there isn't any access. So you have to take a 2 or 3 hours a hike up there to the mountains to do something. Imagine doing this with a chainsaw or with trees, little trees that you want to plant. This is very difficult. And so you have to, first of all, have the infrastructure or for the management. So there, of course, you could use helicopters, cable cranes, but imagine you own 4 hectares of forest and it's impossible to then to rent a helicopter to get your plants up in the forest. I said so, and even a cooperative with all of these challenges are overwhelmed, even if forest owners are together. Next slide, please. So, and imagine you are being a forest administration, you have the sovereign role, you're the police, you'd have to tell them to punish them that because the forest is in a bad state. Do you think it will change something if you punish people? No, for sure, it doesn't work. So and you get to some limits. And of course, also for a forest administration, you have to rethink this approach. Do you go out there, punish a forest owner who's actually not able to rent a helicopter to replant his forest? No. You have to find a different way. And also you have to bring together a lot of forest owners so that you, for example, can afford a helicopter, or you create a trail up in the mountain. So the forest administration had to shift from the top-down approach to a collaborative approach. So actively approaching forest owners, stakeholders. And so we have to find ways to tackle the challenges, to get the forest in a good state again together. And so the area is very interesting also for TRANS-lighthouses, because we can use it as a retrospective case, because first activities already started in 1989 to revitalize and reestablish a mountain forest in one of the places. And it have proven to be a success. And so they decided, so with the experiences made on this slope in Hinterstein, so they decided to have the intensive mountain forest initiative campaign starting in 2008. And so it's around 17, 18 years now with the intensive campaign. And you see that there's really a lot of activities carried out. And also the state decided to give some money for this initiative, or perhaps also, like you would call it in TRANS-lighthouses, offering a participatory budget to be spent. And so it's quite a lot of money. So it's more than 8 million euros over the years. And quite a lot of forest area already has been covered. A lot of trees have been planted. A lot of trails have been constructed so to get access. And actually, the model has been, at least in the Federal Free State, has been recognized a lot. And the idea then, the state decided, the Federal Free State decided to copy this model for other regions in the federal state and give a budget of 50 million euros to cover the entire federal state. Next slide, please. So what do they do? So the co-diagnostic stage, so to say. So the goal is really to establish a mixed structured forest to have the improved activities. And the co-diagnostic activities usually starts going out in the forest and looking at things, looking at the state, reflecting, discussing. And of course, this is also a very important part for this. So the forestry administration is not really the one making the final decision, but the idea is really to have external moderation and mediation, especially when you have conflicts. Conflicts often arise around hunting concepts, because it's also a source of revenue for forest owners, and also because you have some species that are attractive to hunt, like chamois. So it's also external people from cities having a lot of money, put a lot of money on the table to be able to hunt this. And it's then also challenging to negotiate then hunting concepts. Nature conservation is always a hot issue, but also if you think about machinery, so you see a cable crane on the middle picture, or a helicopter, so it requires also quite a lot of management that is related to some intervention that you need there. And also, you have the visitor monitoring concepts. And finally, also, if you have the outcomes, you see, so they also do quite a lot of lobbying and trying to address what actually would help them to better work on the topics. Next slide, please. Looking at the successful factors, so it's always interesting to look what they do and how they do it. So usually I say, yes, we could be doing better, but I think it's very interesting also for learning on this case. So I think one of the good or the success factors is really to have the external facilitation and mediation. And forest authority is really understanding themselves as being equals in the processes. And also what is very important is that there are clear rules at the beginning that are communicated to everyone, and that you follow these steps or the procedures when you make decisions to analyze, have the co-diagnostic, and especially what is also very important, perhaps more important than we see in other cases, also with the long-term processes that you have establishing a forest, there's quite a lot of monitoring activities to see if the measures are successful. So there's a lot of monitoring also installed, and sites are revisited after 10 or 15 years to see if actually the forest has grown the way that it was intended to. Another success factor, I can just only go slightly into it. So there's an advisory board composed of, how to say, stakeholders or persons that are related to stakeholder groups, but that are renowned, well embedded, and well anchored in regional society. For example, the local deputy of the district is, for example, part of this advisory board, and they look at the different project sites. So usually there are 5 to 7 project sites active over a couple of years, and the advisory board visits the project sites once a year and reflect the progress. Try to also, if there are conflicts, try to engage in the conflict and try to moderate as well if needed. Also, as said, the policy and decision makers included usually also the local mayor or the county deputy is often engaged in starting a process and being part of the round tables and when topics are discussed. Also, if there's decision for measures or interventions, so the planning, because it's quite challenging, so co-design here in this context is often a bit challenging. So you need sometimes experts, or often you need experts to do the planning, like constructing a trail or tendering for a helicopter or something. But the idea is to have really transparent planning about these steps so that stakeholders can understand and follow what is done in the next steps. Most important is that you try to not overwhelm stakeholders with too many meetings. Then a good part is that actually there's quite a lot of incentives and funding for the Mountain Forest Initiative. So it's actually money given by the state, so that is also there. So basically, as I said, it's almost like a participatory budget. So if the forest owners decide, for example, constructing on a trail, so they get about 90% of the trail funded. So they just have to pay a little fee for it. Then it's very interesting how the initiative communicates, uses PR, social medias. So one of the examples that I always like to present are the 2 guys that you see in the picture. So they're actually quite famous ski jumps and Nordic combination champions. And they are also forest owners, and so they're always playing the role model. So they also show kids, for example, how to what is important in the forest, how you could manage the forest. And there was, for example, one idea or one initiative they did. So they had a competition for schools to reflecting about the relevance of mountain forest, and the winning team actually would get a day out with the 2 champions. Of course, the motivation was to get a selfie with the champions, but also it's a good way then of communicating forest topic. Next slide, please. The other direction. Yes. And also, it's important to make the success stories visible. Also, you can connect to local traditional knowledge, for example, in their communication. So they have a nice journal that is handed out for free to the local households, and there's always a section on what the elders already knew or something from the past, where you could nicely relink to the traditional knowledge. Then it's always important to have a good network of partners. So you see the picture there. So it's an event at a local fair event. So it's the big thing in the district. This fair. So it's a mix of trade fair and Oktoberfest. And of course, you have always an event there, and everybody wants to be there and be on a picture. And of course, it's always visit to have the site visits, the hand-on cases, and to show the best practice cases. And as I said, so the fair is always very important, and it's always used to have the achievement celebrated together. So it's always very important. Next slide, please. And I would like also go a bit deeper. So also you have to reflect a bit about what you can do actually with the timber. So at the moment, a lot of the wood that is marketed outside of the region. And the idea is, so they have this timber forum, Allgäu. So it's an association cooperative. So the idea is really to keep the value chain locally. So to create something with actually material you have. And they already have 100 members. So it's carpenters, companies, construction companies, and so on, but also forest owners, forest owner association, also the forest administration is part of it. So they have information campaigns for funding, regulations, networks. They try to visit hand-on cases in Austria and Switzerland, where you have more experiences with construction with timber or using wood as a source of energy. And the idea is also to create lighthouse projects in the region. So I can show you these two examples. So one is the Green Center. So if you go to the next slide, so it's a Green Center that is actually the building for the local agency. So it's actually a place now built of wood, of local timber. So where all the stakeholders or the key stakeholders, the institutionalized ones, are actually now located. So it's the forest owner cooperative, the agency, the timber forum, and many others from the cluster. And the other picture, actually, so if you think about reestablishing more broadleafs, you have the problem that you need, especially for in small dimensions of broadleafs. So there's not really another option than using it for energy purposes. And the community of Immenstadt decided actually to create a district heating system. And actually they use wood from their own forests, but also from the local forest cooperative. So really kind of idea how to deal with this wood that is actually difficult to market. So actually they use it for energy purposes, and you have the district heating. And perhaps nowadays with the discussion and problems perhaps with you have with fossil fuels actually from certain regions of the globe and the prices at the moment. So maybe it's quite a good idea to have locally sourced form of energy, so to keep you warm. Next slide, please. Final outlook. So also we reflect a bit about funding opportunities and going beyond. So what could be topics of the future would be perhaps carbon markets for the forest owners. Then we also see that there's growing interest in insurers and insurance companies to invest into nature-based solutions, reduce risk, for example. So there still is some early stage reflections and a lack of knowledge, but it could be a market. Another market is quite interesting. So there are volunteering programs. So don't mix it with the Mountain Forest Initiative. So there's a Mountain Forest project, which is based in Switzerland, but they also have projects in the area and local initiatives. So basically, people go there voluntarily to plant trees and forests in their leisure time, and they even pay for it, or they do it as a voluntary activity. And it can be a help, for example, to get trees into the ground in the mountains. Payments for ecosystem services could be a market. And finally, a place, a topic that is still not discussed that much. So for the farmings and the agriculture part, they reflect about diversification and value adding in the value chains. But you could also reflect, for example, so it's a tourist destination, and you could also reflect about as for opening the forest for activities or for more activities. I mentioned, so access is for free, but perhaps you create some offers, perhaps also related to farm holidays that is very popular in the area, like offering forest yoga courses or overnight stays in the forest. Or also one of the forest, in an interview that I did, one of the forest cooperatives said, how maybe we have a program that tourists can adopt a tree or plant a tree so that they will eventually come back, but also give support to us as forest owners or organizing forest owners. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much. And if you have questions, I just could go into a few little aspects. Please feel free to ask and contact me.
Thank you, Gerd. I decided not to interrupt you because I think it's important that you have this chance to mainly the last part of what can be imagined to replicate this kind of experiences, because we talk about a huge funding opportunity. In some places there is not this and many of what the aspects that you mentioned about forests, like in Portugal, we have very big issues about many owners of little slots who are obliged by law to clean the forest to avoid the firework, so the fires, the forest fires. And in this part, there is what you mentioned. If they pay, they are punished, but at the same time, they do not have the resources to do this cleaning. So that's very ambivalent. So we have many colleagues who already left. So, but I promise you, I will find a way to collect more impressions about each presentations and also to instigate some questions. So we can have at the end really a way of putting the different challenges together and the different answers. So there's diversities of your presentations in a way that we can still share with your fellow speakers. But maybe if any one of you wants to share any impression about the presentation, any specific issue that was raised here, who would like to exchange on that? I had the opportunity to to comment about each one of the presentations, but maybe you would like to focus specifically. Eduardo and Gerd, just tell us about anything that you thought was very that impressed you, a detail that impressed you in any of the presentations, something that you did not expect. Okay, Bettina. Okay, we will share the result of this exchange and how we follow up. But thank you for being with us.
Thanks a lot. No, thanks a lot. Super interesting. Okay. Bye. Bye.
Bye, Bettina. That's the challenge of having 5 colleagues reach discussion at the same time. We'll try to have to handle that. It's always the challenge is to put. We have so many good examples and colleagues to share that we want to have them all at the same time. But Gerd, you were about to say something. I think that you had your microphone on.
No, it's
no,
okay, but I tried to give an answer to your question, what was surprising me. So I think what is really interesting is, so my topic is quite related to a certain group, but what I really found very interesting and unexpected is really this kind of voting processes that you did in Estarreja and finding the interventions that you want to do. So I think this is really, really very interesting, also with the kind of voting processes and discussions and filtering out and then coming to a decision and implementing it. So I think this is really a very interesting and exciting aspect of actually of your case and then also of some of the other cases with this decision-making process. It's really interesting to follow and see. And I think it's also a very valuable experience in form of, at the moment, so we also have a bit of a challenge with democratic processes, and it's the one who is the loudest and who is the most powerful decides what to do. I think it's also something where also nature can teach us to learn and make decision processes, which I think is very valuable and maybe even valuable than some years ago, from my perspective.
If I may just give a quick feedback. Thank you, Gerd, for your thoughts. Indeed, this was very enriching process, and I think it's been a very interesting experience from the start, and it has been a bit surprising as well because we are not used to this type of processes to implement projects in the municipality, and especially regarding nature conservation. And I always had the feeling that since we opened up the goals of the pilot case, that we would have more of an human utility approach regarding nature. So it would be something more like a support for sustainable practices in farming or in the setup of a new trail or a new green space. I was not expecting this much dynamic and interest regarding nature conservation, and especially on the micro reserves. So it was a really interesting surprise, but it was kind of present throughout the process. And it's really interesting that we had this. Okay, we are implementing this project that will bring us some ecological benefits, but it was created with the stakeholders here in the territory. So it's something that people worked for and helped choose. in spite of the other projects also being very, very, very interesting. So yeah, it's been a very enriching project. Regarding the session today, Nathalie, you were asking about what surprised us the most. I think it was really, really interesting to have these different perspectives, because we had the research in academia, but we also had the Farmers Association, we had in our case the municipality, and all of us are working in different ways, but with a common goal of involving the local communities and the stakeholders in the processes and decision making. So it has been, it was really interesting to have these different perspectives. And okay, I already knew the work done by Gerd and the Mountain Forest Initiative, and it's fantastic. It's amazing, and we have some bridges to make to our own territory, because we have some specificities that are quite similar to the ones in the Upper Algarve. But for instance, it was really interesting to see how Swati approached the fishing community. It's a really interesting approach. We never thought about involving this community in these stakeholders in this so deep of a manner. And it was really interesting to get to know the work they are doing there and how they connected with the diversity of fishing folks within the fishing community, which was really interesting.
The diversity, in fact, how different interests and different profiles are in the same territory, something essential to talk about rural communities. And it was very clear here. But I think that Gerd brought an aspect that were not so touched by the others. It's about the mediation. You mentioned, Gerd, a lot about different interests, but also like when you have hunters and when you have recreational activities, that's not compatible at the first sight, in fact. And so, and how you mediate these interests and these different ways of using a place, and these are very clashing aspects, in fact. So the mediation and how who you involve as a mediator. As you said, you cannot, like the state cannot be the mediator, because they need to be on a level of equal level to participate. So I was thinking, trying to find a way to put together. I think that something happened to me along all the presentations, and maybe Gerd, you will tell me what you think, particularly Gerd, because we worked together on something that is called the building blocks. And so we worked on a report for the European Commission where we worked on these framing building blocks for co-creation and co-governance. And maybe we could try to extract from the different presentations some blocks or some aspects or some pieces of the puzzle, this ecology of knowledge practices. Maybe we could bring this proposal, this methodological proposal, to follow up on this session and help others to come into these contents and also to extract from this content something that can be also immediately shared, like in terms of practices and experience. I don't know, what do you think? Is this something that you think that is feasible?
Yes.
So maybe we can do, what I was thinking maybe is we can extract the transcription of this session and extract these blocks and ask the presenters, the speakers, if they agree with what we took from their presentations. And ask the fellow speakers also, do you think, is this what you perceived from the others? Which block would you add on the table? And this will be our living knowledge lab. this webinar, a living knowledge lab on experiences and practices. But I talk too much. Maybe Andrea, Ella, Joanna, you want also to share before we close the session?
Maybe just one point, or maybe in relation with the building blocks that you mentioned, Nathalie. I think that several presentations mention, even develop ideas about ownership structure, ownership issues. In particular, Maria, about how municipalities can have a role in facilitating access to land. And I think that there are, in other presentations, issues connected, and maybe this can be something in the minutes, in the abstract of the presentation. I think, for example, I don't know, in Estarreja, if the network of micro reserves, if the land is part of the municipality land, or it is involving the small owners. I think this issue can also be connecting the different presentations. In the first presentation, there is the idea of commons for the sea, so this other approach to ownership. So I think there is something interesting to follow up in this direction.
You are okay with this challenge of building blocks. So Ella, you will take a block maybe, and you will elaborate on that. And I know that Gerd had a very strong image during the review. It was about the Legos. So the building blocks, and I think that's a good occasion that we put it together. In fact, we materialize this. Joanna and Andrea, say something. Or I'll say it's finished. No.
I really can't talk.
Baila.
Okay, so I just wanted to thank you for this interesting webinar. What I actually instigated more interest on my part is exactly how different contexts, such different contexts, can actually be brought together and put in dialogue. So that's what I think is one of the most interesting aspects, that one of the outputs of all these building blocks put together is this dialogue that somehow, despite different contexts, many issues are the same, you know? And thank you for your great moderation. So thank you all.
Yes, ending half an hour late. Okay, but that's fine. No, we had 5 speakers, and well, it's in fact many presentations at the same time. So we'll try to maybe change the dynamics if we want to invite all dynamics of having them interacting immediately as a lesson learned maybe. So voila. That's it. Thank you so much for staying until the end of this session, even ending late. We'll try to update you as soon as possible about this follow-up, this methodological follow-up, so we can share it with the other colleagues. Okay, so since it was recorded, that's fine. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the moderation. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
See you
Bye.
soon.
See you. Bye.
Bye.